Sometimes images reveal a raw truth about a group of people. Join us as we uncover the rare Wild West photos history tried to forget. But before we begin, if you love to explore forgotten history and untold stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a video like this. Tom Ketchum, the outlaw called Blackjack. Tom Ketchum, better known as Blackjack, appears in this rare photograph from the late 1890s. Originally a cowboy in Texas, Ketchum turned to a life of crime and joined a gang of train robbers operating in New Mexico. He was involved in numerous holdups, including the infamous robbery of a train near Folsom. In 1901, he attempted a solo robbery and was captured. His hanging became one of the most gruesome in Western history, with a poorly measured rope decapitating him. This image freezes a moment in the life of a man who came to symbolize the violent extremes of frontier justice. Laura Bullion, the Wild Bunch woman. Laura Bullion, the only female member of Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, poses confidently in this studio portrait taken in the early 1900s. Nicknamed the Thorny Rose, she took part in bank and train robberies and often disguised herself as a man. Born in Texas in 1876, she was introduced to outlaw life through her lover, Ben Kilpatrick. Her arrest came in 1901 when a bounty was put on her head and she served 3 years in prison. Afterward, she changed her name and lived a quiet life in Tennessee. This photograph captures her youthful intensity during a time when few women dared to live outside society's rules in the American West. Pec Thomas, the relentless marshal. Pec Thomas appears in this image alongside fellow marshals in the Oklahoma Territory, a key area of lawlessness in the late 1800s. Known for his unshakable pursuit of justice, Thomas played a crucial role in the capture and downfall of the Doolin-Dalton gang. He often worked with fellow lawmen Chris Madsen and Bill Tillman, earning the nickname Three Guardsmen of Oklahoma. His methods were tough and direct, which normally involved relentless tracking and sudden confrontations. So, this picture reflects the intensity and danger of being a lawman in a region still grappling with its identity between civilization and chaos. Lillian Smith, Oakley's young rival. Lillian Smith, a gifted sharpshooter, stands gracefully in this photograph, taken during a tour with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. At just 15, she was already performing alongside legends like Annie Oakley, whom she saw as a rival. Smith's flamboyant style and public confidence sparked a long-standing feud with Oakley, who preferred a more modest public image. Lillian's youth and flashy persona made her a crowd favorite, but her career was short-lived due to personal struggles and shifting tastes in entertainment. This picture shows the competitive spirit of Wild West show women and the stage they used to carve out independence and fame. Wasaki, the Shoshone statesman. Chief Wasaki appears in this dignified portrait wearing traditional Shoshone attire. He was one of the few native leaders to advocate for peace while maintaining his people's sovereignty. Born around 1804, Wasaki became a respected warrior and later a statesman, known for negotiating with the U.S. government to secure the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. Unlike many leaders of his era, Wasaki balanced diplomacy with tradition, often choosing strategic alliances over conflict. His photograph reflects a man of strength and foresight, emblematic of native resistance through negotiation and wisdom rather than warfare. He led his people well into his 90s. Eleanor Dumont, the Lady Gambler. Eleanor Dumont, also known as Madame Moustache, leans over a card table in this rare photograph from the 1860s. A French immigrant, she traveled across California and Nevada, running gambling houses and earning a reputation for fairness and mystery. Known for her refined manners and sharp card skills, she defied the typical image of a saloon girl. Dumont was an independent woman in a rough, male-dominated world, commanding both fear and respect. Her life ended tragically in 1879, likely by suicide after financial ruin. This image captures a woman ahead of her time, navigating risk and reputation in the unforgiving West. James Masterson, Dodge City's quiet enforcer. James Masterson, brother to Bat Masterson, stands in this 1880s photograph as a calm but resolute figure in law enforcement. Less famous than his brother, James served as a lawman in Dodge City, Kansas, one of the rowdiest towns of the Wild West. Unlike the flamboyant Bat, James preferred a quieter style of justice, relying on negotiation and observation rather than gunplay. Still, he was involved in several deadly confrontations. His presence in this image symbolizes the understated bravery of many peacekeepers of the frontier who faced danger daily without ever becoming legends. His work helped bring a semblance of order to chaos. Ranald McKenzie, the relentless commander. General Ranald McKenzie poses in his military uniform in this 1870s photograph taken during the Indian Wars. A graduate of West Point and a Civil War veteran, McKenzie was known for his aggressive campaigns against Comanche and Kiowa forces in Texas. His leadership in the Battle of Palo Duro Canyon effectively ended Native resistance in the Southern Plains. Despite his military success, McKenzie suffered from mental illness in later years and died in obscurity. His image here reflects the dual legacy of many military men of the era, victorious in battle but haunted by the weight of what their victories cost. Victoriao, the Apache strategist. Victoriao, a respected leader of the Warm Springs Apache, stands solemnly in this 1870s image, dressed in a woven robe. Unlike the better-known Geronimo, Victoriao led calculated raids in response to U.S. efforts to relocate his people from their New Mexico homeland. He was a brilliant tactician, using the terrain to his advantage in guerrilla warfare across the Southwest. In 1880, Victoriao was finally cornered and killed by Mexican troops, ending one of the most skilled resistance campaigns of the Indian Wars. This portrait preserves the memory of a man who chose defiance over displacement, fighting for survival and sovereignty. Will Rogers, cowboy philosopher. Will Rogers grins modestly in this studio photo, wearing a cowboy hat as if to say the cowboy life was never far behind. Born in 1879 in Indian Territory, Rogers was part Cherokee and spent his early years working on ranches and traveling in Wild West shows. Eventually, he became a beloved humorist, writer, and movie star. He joked about politics and culture with wit and humility, connecting with Americans across class lines. Rogers never forgot his Western roots, often speaking up for Native people and rural communities. This photo captures a man who blended rope tricks with razor-sharp insight to become a national treasure. Julia Boulette, the Madam of Virginia City. Julia Boulette stands regally in this rare 1860s photo, wearing a green gown and adorned with jewelry. As one of the most famous madams in Virginia City, Nevada, during the Silver Rush, Julia was both a businesswoman and a respected community member. She catered to wealthy miners and was known for her generosity, often donating to firefighters and hospitals. Her tragic murder in 1867 shocked the town and led to a public outcry, reflecting the fine line between vice and virtue on the frontier. This image captures a woman who lived boldly in a world where respect was hard-won, especially for women in her trade. Lucille Mullhal, America's first cowgirl. Lucille Mullhal stands proudly on top of her horse in this 1901 photograph taken at a Wild West show. Known as America's first cowgirl, she gained fame for her unmatched roping and riding skills at a time when rodeo was a male-dominated sport. Born in Oklahoma Territory in 1885, she began performing as a teenager and was later hired by Theodore Roosevelt to perform at the Rough Riders reunion. Lucille broke barriers by refusing to ride side saddle and consistently outperformed her male counterparts. This image represents a pioneering spirit who helped redefine the role of women in the Western performance world. Tom Horn, from scout to hired gun. Tom Horn sits with a cold stare in this photograph that was taken shortly before his execution in 1903. A former Army scout, Pinkerton detective, and range enforcer, Horn's legacy is one of controversy. He was hired by cattle barons to deal with suspected rustlers, often with fatal outcomes. His most infamous case involved the murder of a 14-year-old boy, for which he was convicted under disputed circumstances. Horn maintained his innocence, but his reputation as a hired killer sealed his fate. This image captures the grim complexity of a man who lived in the gray areas between justice and vengeance on the frontier. Rose Dunn, the Rose of Cimarron. In this late 1890s photo, Rose Dunn poses in an elegant dress, holding a gun, far removed from her earlier days riding with outlaws. Nicknamed the Rose of Cimarron, she was romantically involved with George Bitter Creek Newcomb of the Wild Bunch. At just 15, she helped her lover evade capture and was seen aiding the gang during confrontations with lawmen. Though she was never officially charged with a crime, her involvement was widely known. She later left outlaw life behind, marrying a politician and living quietly. This photo reveals the surprising duality of women in the Old West: nurturers, rebels, and sometimes both. Biddy Mason, from enslaved to empowered. Biddy Mason stands with quiet strength in this rare photograph from the 1870s. Born into slavery in Georgia, she was brought to California, where she successfully petitioned for her freedom in 1856. Once free, Mason became a nurse and midwife in Los Angeles, eventually buying land and building wealth. She used her fortune to establish schools and provide aid to the black community, becoming one of the city's first prominent African-American philanthropists. Her image here shows the lesser-known stories of strength and self-determination that shaped the West, not with guns, but with courage and compassion. John King Fisher, gentleman gunfighter. John King Fisher appears in this 1870s portrait, wearing fine clothes more fitting for a Southern gentleman than a Texan gunfighter. He began his career as a cattle rustler, but later turned to law enforcement, serving as sheriff in Uvalde County. Known for his flashy style and brutal efficiency, Fisher was one of the few men to successfully straddle both sides of the law. He was killed in 1884 during a trip to San Antonio, ambushed alongside fellow gunslinger Ben Thompson. This photograph reflects the dual identities many Western figures carried: part showman, part soldier, in a land ruled by reputation. And now, this is where the list gets more interesting. Cherokee Bill, the handsome killer. Cherokee Bill stares confidently into the camera in this haunting 1890s photo shoot. Born Crawford Goldsby, he was part Cherokee, black and white, a man caught between worlds and pushed into violence early. He joined a gang of outlaws by the age of 18, robbing banks and murdering without hesitation. Bill became notorious for shooting a man just for calling him out during a robbery. At his trial, he reportedly said, "I came here to die, not make a speech." He was hanged at Fort Smith at just 20 years old. This photo captures the charisma and coldness of one of the West's youngest, deadliest legends. Black Coyote, the spark at Wounded Knee. This stark photo shows the snowy landscape where Black Coyote, a deaf Lakota man, resisted looking up to the sky in thought after giving up his rifle to U.S. soldiers in 1890. That moment sparked the Wounded Knee Massacre, where over 250 Lakota were slaughtered. Black Coyote didn't speak much and likely didn't understand the demands to disarm. His small act of resistance, whether intentional or not, triggered one of the bloodiest atrocities in Native American history. His story reminds us how fear, misunderstanding, and aggression shaped tragic events. Though rarely named, his presence in this moment turned a tense standoff into a horrific massacre. Belle Sidins, from Belle to Madame Vestal. In this 1860s photograph, Belle Sidins poses for the camera with her expression clearly unreadable. A former Southern belle and Confederate spy, Belle reinvented herself as Madame Vestal in the gambling halls of Deadwood and Leadville. She dealt faro, carried a pistol, and smoked cigars in public, scandalous for a woman of her time. Known for her intellect and temper, she was once arrested for shooting a rival over a cheating accusation. This image reflects a woman who moved seamlessly between war, deception, and saloon life, shaping her own legend in a world that rarely gave women control. Bill Picket, Bulldogger of the Plains. This early 1900s photo shows Bill Picket mid-stunt, moving in a horse to wrestle a steer by its horns. A black cowboy of Cherokee descent, Picket invented the rodeo sport of bulldogging, grabbing a steer by the horns and biting its lip to bring it down. He performed with the 101 Ranch Wild West show alongside legends like Buffalo Bill. Despite his fame, racism often kept him from headlining under his real name, so he sometimes passed as Mexican. His powerful presence and unmatched grit helped shape modern rodeo. Picket wasn't just a cowboy, he was a showman, an innovator, and a symbol of Western resilience. Poker Alice. A lady with a gun and a cigar. Poker Alice poses with a deck of cards in this unusual portrait from the early 1900s, her eyes sharp beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Born in England and raised in Virginia, Alice became a feared card sharp across Colorado and South Dakota. She smoked cigars, carried a pistol, and once shot a man in her saloon for causing trouble. Alice claimed to have won over $250,000 in her gambling career. Despite her toughness, she insisted on closing shop on Sundays, citing her religious beliefs. This photo captures a complex woman who mastered cards, controlled a room, and lived entirely by her own rules. George Parrot, the outlaw turned into shoes. In this disturbing image from the 1880s, the preserved skull of George Big Nose Parrot sits beside a pair of shoes made from his own skin. Parrot was a cattle rustler and stagecoach robber captured in Wyoming after killing 2 lawmen. Before he could be legally hanged, a mob broke into the jail and lynched him. Doctors later used his body for study, and a local shoemaker fashioned his skin into shoes worn by a lawman. The macabre artifacts became morbid souvenirs of frontier justice. This photo is a chilling reminder of the West's thirst for vengeance and its sometimes grotesque souvenirs. Big Nose Kate's final days. This image shows a woman called Mary Catherine Horney, better known as Big Nose Kate, who lived a life as legendary as her partner, Doc Holliday. After years spent in the rough towns of the frontier, Kate settled quietly in Arizona. But before retiring, she had lived in Deadwood, Dodge City, and Tombstone, often helping Holliday escape danger. Her sharp wit and iron will made her a respected figure in a male-dominated world. This photo, taken in her later years, shows the worn hands of a woman who had lived through the blood-soaked legend of the Old West. She died in 1940, one of the last direct links to Tombstone's golden age. Klay Allison, the unhinged gunslinger. This is an image of Klay Allison, a man who was known not only for his skill with a revolver, but also for his unstable behavior. Born in Tennessee in 1840, he fought in the Confederate Army before drifting west. In New Mexico and Texas, he earned a reputation for violence and vengeance. One story tells of him dancing with a corpse he'd just killed in a duel. Though charming at times, he was feared and unpredictable. Allison's photo captures a man whose eyes betrayed a flicker of madness. His life ended when he fell off his own wagon, but legends say death was the only thing that could stop him. Sarah Bowman, the Great Western. This is a portrait of Sarah Bowman, who was known for towering over most men. Sarah Bowman stood over 6 feet tall and was known for her bravery during the Mexican-American War, where she was seen cooking for soldiers. Her heroic act gave her the nickname the Great Western. She ran boarding houses along the frontier and was well respected by both soldiers and civilians. A fearless woman, she carried pistols, smoked cigars, and was once said to have held off Comanche attackers. Her legacy endures as one of the boldest women of the West. This rare photo, taken in Texas, shows her in her rugged attire, a stance that commands authority. Bowman died in 1866 and was buried with military honors. Charlie Basset, Dodge City lawman. This is a historical image of Charlie Basset, the famous lawman of the Old West. During his time, Charlie Basset was among the first lawmen of Dodge City, Kansas, helping establish law and order alongside Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson. A former bartender turned sheriff, he was known for his calm demeanor and quick reflexes with a six-shooter. Bassett's tenure in Dodge City saw him face off with notorious outlaws and drunken cowboys alike. This image shows him in his sheriff's coat, revolver on his hip, standing on Front Street, a quiet protector of a town that teetered between chaos and civilization. Though overshadowed by his peers, Basset was respected and remembered as a steady hand in wild times. Ellen Watson, lynched landowner. This is a rare image of Ellen Cattle Kate Watson, who was a homesteader in Wyoming. In her time, she challenged the powerful cattle barons by legally acquiring land and cattle. In 1889, she and her companion were hanged by vigilantes under accusations of rustling, though history has largely cleared her name. The photograph of Ellen shows a determined woman standing proudly on her homestead. Her lynching became one of the most controversial events in Western land disputes, and her story is now seen as a grim example of frontier injustice. Watson's life and death continue to challenge the romanticized tales of the Old West. Commodore Perry Owens, the gunman sheriff. With long flowing hair and a coat reaching his boots, Commodore Perry Owens looked more like an outlaw than the lawman in this picture. As sheriff of Apache County, Arizona, Owens cemented his legend during a shootout in 1887, killing 3 members of the Blevins gang in a single gunfight. Known for his accuracy and cold composure, he often walked alone into dangerous territory without fear. This photograph captures him just before that infamous showdown, holding his rifle at ease, as if violence were just another part of the job. Owens later retired quietly, but his deeds lived on in dime novels and legend. Lottie Dino, the poker queen. This is a rare image of Lottie Dino, who was born Carlotta Tompkins in Kentucky, earned fame as one of the most formidable female gamblers in the Old West. With a refined upbringing and education, she traveled to Texas, where her poker skills became legendary. Elegant and composed, Lottie played in saloons dominated by rough men and never backed down from a high-stakes game. Her nickname, Lottie Dino, reportedly came from opponents mishearing Lotta Dinero, a nod to her winnings. Her calm demeanor and strategic mind allowed her to thrive in a man's world, leaving a trail of astonished gamblers in her wake. John Wesley Hardin, the deadliest gun. John Wesley Hardin remains one of the most feared gunslingers of the Old West. Born in Texas in 1853, he claimed to have killed over 40 men before his 25th birthday. Known for his short temper and deadly precision, Hardin once shot a man for snoring too loudly. He spent years on the run and behind bars, eventually studying law while imprisoned. After his release, he tried to go straight, but was gunned down in 1895. Hardin's story is a brutal reminder of the fine line between outlaw and folk hero in the violent world of the Wild West. Susan Anderson, the frontier doctor. Dr. Susan Anderson defied expectations as one of the first female physicians in the Old West. Born in Indiana in 1870, she practiced medicine in the harsh Colorado Rockies during the early 1900s. Nicknamed Doc Susie, she treated miners, ranchers, and children alike, often traveling through snowstorms to reach her patients. Despite personal setbacks and skepticism from male colleagues, she became a beloved figure in Grand County, Colorado. Her medical knowledge, courage, and compassion made her a pioneer not only in medicine, but also in breaking gender barriers on the rugged frontier. Although the Old West wasn't perfect and had its share of ups and downs, these images reveal a forgotten side of history often overlooked by historians. It was not just about outlaws and gunslingers. These photos show us the real people who lived through that time. So which of these images caught your attention the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating stories about American history. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.